Allow me to introduce myself. My name is T or Luna, whichever you decide, and I'm here as your guide. I hope you're ready for this ride. Health and wellness is life-worthy pursuit. Through self-discipline and love, we can all have a life reboot. Welcome to Working with a Purpose, and my name is T Luna Imhotep, and I will be your guide, as I said. So, in this channel, we focus on reparenting ourselves in order to get our ish together by deconstructing our default methods in order to live into our purpose. Welcome to that work. So, today, in our next part of our series entitled Healing with a Purpose, we will be discussing what to say or do instead of what not to say or do as a support person, or friend or family member of a person or family who has experienced pregnancy and infant loss. So again, October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And so this month's Healing with a Purpose will encompass supportive techniques and information in order to assist people along their healing journey. So we're going to just discuss on Facebook. I have posted by now, say this or that for support persons dealing with around the subject of infant loss and pregnancy loss, right? So today we're just going to briefly go over and kind of expand a bit on our say this or that or do this and that instead of that, right? And so the first aspect of it is first things first. Now, we've all been in, if not all, I'm going to say me. I'm going to do I-me statements, right? So I have been in the experience of before experiencing pregnancy loss, which I have experienced pregnancy loss before having the personal experience. Sometimes we just don't know what to say, and so when people have experiences around grief or loss that we have never experienced, or if we have experienced but we felt silence, we often may not have the words or actions to say or do to make the person feel better, because it's easier, I'm gonna be honest, it's easier to celebrate wins with people than to sit in that space, that uncomfortableness of grief, loss, and other aspects of disenfranchised grief, which I spoke of in my last video. So if you haven't checked that out, please feel free to check out our first introductory video for this segment. So yes, I have been, y'all gonna have to excuse the puppies. We have husky puppies, so there's always some type of dog in my house. Okay, so I have personally failed at holding space for people who've experienced loss. And I have found that this experience of not being present, not having the energy, we don't do it intentionally, right? I will say that it was never intentional in any aspect of the way, of form, to not be a safe person for my loved one, friend, family who've experienced loss. However, it was a conditioned way of responding to loss. And so what I mean by that is that in my experience of loss, whenever something negatively happened in my life, I didn't have or receive the support from those the adults in my life who should have supported me and taught me ways to heal in that, right? So in the work of reparenting ourselves, it is about learning new tools in order to do it different, right? So I know for me, whenever I experience sadness or grief growing up, I felt as though my feelings were totally dismissed. I felt as though there wasn't a safe space for me to express my feelings, whether that be crying or whether that be, anger or whatever the case may be, because unfortunately, particularly for Black women, we're not really taught that it's okay to have feelings. And I would say Black men too also, right? And so there's a saying that goes that I truly believe that Black mothers raise their sons, Black mothers mother their sons and raise their daughters, right? And only recently I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers and his family, Belief in Fatherhood, Belief Mel. If you don't know who he is, please check him out. Belief in Fatherhood is doing it for Black dads out there. So, but he says something when he was doing a video about his daughter. He said he noticed that you give young girls responsibility by giving them a baby doll, right? Teaching them how to mother. You give them responsibility. You give little boys an opportunity by giving them a football or teaching them a sport or playing with them. So you give them an opportunity. You give girls a responsibility. I thought that was just a very, very wise observation that he made there. But to come back to the subject, so really, I will say that my experience of feeling like I didn't show up as the best friend or best sister friend or best family member to someone who experienced loss, particularly, excuse me, y'all, my mouth's still healing, particularly around pregnancy and infant mortality. Yeah, it was really because I didn't have the words, right? So often we don't have the words. Often we don't know what to do. So I want to give you some things that you can do or say instead of the things that we are conditioned to do or say, right? So here are just some brief things you can do or say around the area of pregnancy and infant loss. Say or do this. I am here for you if you ever need to talk. Please try not to do silence. A lot of the times we have experienced silence around the subject, and when I mean that, it's like the mentality. Black families don't talk about stuff. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about that. Yeah, oh yeah, my cousin lost a baby, but we're not talking about it. You might gossip about it, but you're not talking about it, right? So instead of having that silence, instead of having that avoidance, instead of just totally not calling in and checking in or removing yourself from the person's life in general, try offering your ear. I'm here if you ever need to talk. It's that simple. And sometimes people will take you on that offer, and then sometimes they won't. It really just depends on where they are. But the fact that you offered is enough. Okay? The next tip is, my heart is with you. Offering your heart is a sense of offering your compassion, right? And so when we give our heart instead of our sympathy, then it allows people to feel you on a deeper connective level, that one-on-one connection, right? So offering your heart, my heart is with you, instead of, God got some, God got us, God did this, God, we don't know why God do what God do. Listen. People do not want to hear that when they're mourning, and that's a whole nother subject that I'm not going to get on right now. That'll be another subject when I talk about theology and the troubles as a theologian, the troubles of unhealthy theology. But people do not want to hear that the God that they serve, that is taught to them as a good God, would do something so hurtful as take their child away from them. Okay, so let's just be clear about that. So please just say, my heart is with you during this time. Something like that. What you can possibly do during this time for a family member or friend going through loss is tidy up the home. Go just stop over. Usually sometimes your dish is not clean. You could tidy up the home, wash some dishes, put a load in the laundry, care for the children if there are currently children there, care for their partner. Because remember, if their partner is there, their partner is too going through loss. And it is very hard on couples who experience loss. And that is a main reason why couples often do not survive going through a loss of a child, whether that be in pregnancy or postpartum or, as an infant, right? Or even a child. A lot of families, if you ever watched a movie, side note, okay. Have you ever watched the movie? Is it 7? Is it 7 pounds? I'm sorry, I can't. It's like totally blank. But the movie with Will Smith, where his daughter dies, right, and in the relationship with his wife, he and his wife ended because he was really grieving the loss of his child, and he just couldn't. He couldn't deal with it. And then at the end, they come back around and you realize that was his ex-wife. That is true. That is a very true and real representation of that. Partners go through loss too. It's not just the birthing person or the mother who experiences loss of a child. So remember that the responsibility shouldn't be placed simply and solely on the partner who also is experiencing loss. This is the perfect time for community to come together to support the person who's experiencing that, because they are the community. This is what community is for, right? So showing up, just doing something that needs to be done, as simple as food, bringing some food over, being there, helping the kids, washing their clothes, washing the kids' hair, taking them a bath. Doing those everyday things could be difficult when you yourself just can't even, maybe you're experiencing depression, or maybe they're experiencing depression, or they can't even get out of bed, right? I'm actually reading one of my books that I'm reading. I'm always reading books, guys, so we'll talk about that another time also. But in the book, Getting to Happy by Terry McMillan, the author, it is the sequel to Waiting to Excel. She talks about how one of the characters' husband dies, and I don't want to ruin it for y'all, because if you read it, yeah. So when her husband dies, her sisters come there and they help her as she's grieving. They help her get in and out of bed. They come and they take her clothes off and they change her into her pajamas. They come there and wash her. They care for her. They take turns coming and caring for her, spending time with her, right? That is community. That is sisterhood. And when you experience grief and loss, it is the time for us to show up for each other. And unfortunately, we do live in a time where those practices are often lost, and it's time to regain those. So that is one thing I want to say, is just showing up, and doing that instead of call me if you need anything. Because when we say call me if you need anything, it's totally it's putting the onus and the responsibility on the person who's experiencing grief. And oftentimes people in grief do not have the words to articulate how they're feeling, right? And so instead of putting the responsibility on them to reach out to you, just showing up and showing them that, hey, I'm here. Even if you don't have the words, I'm here. I'm present with you in this experience. So next thing you could do is bring food or cook. That's, again, going back to just being there for the person, making sure they're getting a healthy and balanced meal, because perhaps they just they just eating to survive. Maybe they kids just eating to survive at this point. Everybody eating McDonald's, right? Because it's like, look, there's a 10 for 10 somewhere. I'm going to feed my kids that because at least they eating, And so in this time, when it comes to, now from a naturopathic perspective, when it comes to your hormones and all of that, so when you're experiencing sadness, it's the dopamine, which is your happy hormone, decreases. Okay. And so if someone who loves you, if you love them, right, coming there and cooking them a nutritious meal that brings good memories, makes them feel good, will be better than the opposite, which is commenting on their weight. So when we experience grief or loss, or when we're just experiencing deep sadness, depression, whatever the case may be, we often either gain or lose weight. And so people tend to comment on, oh, you've really lost weight, or you've really put on the pounds, right? So instead of just being present with them and being like, hey, I noticed that they did, because you know what? It's hard out here. So let me go ahead and let me come and cook with the kids, cook with the family, just being present, bringing that energy, having those good memories that bring, that trigger happiness, right? Smelling of good food, cooking in your house, something nutritious, being fed to them so that it not only nourishes their body, but their soul. Okay. So yeah, being, it's just coming and cooking, because cooking is love. Food is love, y'all. I don't know about y'all, but food is love. Okay. So next is, something that you can say when someone is experiencing mourning and they're just crying and things like that. You can just affirm them and say, no, it's not fair. So this goes back to, similar to, God did this for a reason. God just wanted an angel. No. Let's move away from that season. Let's expand our vocabulary. Let's expand our compassion and say simply, no, it's not fair. And you don't have to go deep into it. You don't have to do more, but we can say it's not fair that you didn't get to have this experience. You did not get to see the creation that you come into manifestation. It's not fair, right? Because it's not, and life is not always fair. So yeah, that's just a simple word. You can say, no, it's not fair, and offer that instead of, you can always try again. Yeah, people do not want to hear that, guys. You can always try again. You young. You can always try again. I want you to understand that often women or birthing people experience multiple, at least, 1 in 4 people, women, birthing persons and women experience a miscarriage. 1 in 4. So if you've experienced 1 or maybe more miscarriages, you don't want to hear you can always try again, because you have no idea how often couples are trying to conceive, how many years are put in couples trying to conceive. I've had clients, I've known people, I've been in groups of women who've said, I tried to conceive for 18 years before I was able to have a healthy, bouncing baby. Okay? So we just don't know what people are going through. So just know it's not fair. Simple. Next, you can offer, this is not easy, but I will be here with you through this. All right. So this is not easy. It ain't easy. Okay. It's not easy. We're not going to sugarcoat it and act like it is. And sometimes we don't have the words, and sometimes all somebody wants you to do is listen to them cry, or sometimes there are no tears, and sometimes you're just in so much grief that you don't even have space to even give yourself the time to be sad. So just simply, this is not easy, but I will be here with you through this, right? Can be helpful, instead of, it's been 6 years. You not over that yet? Don't you think you should move on? Don't you think you should try again? Whenever people experience loss, whether that is a loss of a person, relationship, a job, anything like that, anything, a lifestyle, a a limb, whatever it is, right? We people often just be like, you should move on. You know, the best way, especially, okay, you know, the best way to get over something is to get into something else. You know, that mentality does not allow for the space that is necessary for healing. And so instead of, you know, trying to force someone to move on because you're uncomfortable with their pain, allow the space and just be like, I'm going to be with you through this. Okay. And whatever that looks like is, you know, and offering more healing tools and techniques and sacred space for them to heal. And finally, just being present with people through their experience of loss is enough. And I'm not saying stop your life for other people, but if this person or this family really means something to you and in your life and in your community, just being present with them in their confusion and in their sadness and in their pain is often just enough, because at the end of the day, once they're through this experience, they're going to say, you know what, you were there for me. Okay. And doing it with just the love of your own heart, not with any ulterior motives or any manipulative you know, feelings around the subject that some people can have. Well, I was there for you when you went through this. Nobody wants to hear that. And that's often why people have a hard time asking for help, because they don't want it thrown back into their face when they're going through something or when it's time for them to show up. Because you know what, at the end of the day, not everybody going to show up the way that they, I'm going to say, at the end of the day, sometimes people may not show up for you the way that you showed up for them. But if your showing up is done from your heart space and because of compassion, then that's okay. It's okay. So offering your presence is a great way to be in community with someone and support someone through their experience of grief and loss, as opposed to distance, as opposed to, again, gossip or silence and just like acting as though they don't exist, or, you know, pushing them out of your community or just not showing up for them at all. Those are ways to just be present with families when they're experiencing loss in any way, shape, or form. So those are just some quick tips for family and support persons who are being present with folks in their experience. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I don't have any links or anything, but you can follow my Facebook group as I offer other tips and tools through this healing experience of healing and being present and honoring Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month together. And I will see you guys next time. So peace, love, Ubuntu, and namaste.